Hello. This is Jungle Jargon recording from an undisclosed location. I was listening to Standing for Truth, Praise, and Matt earlier today, and it's probably from yesterday. They were all ganging up on emotionally stunted emoticon EME, and it's just amazing how the evolutionists are holding on to hope against all hope. They have the greatest faith ever in mindless matter or whatever. So I'd just like to also say that we appreciate the the efforts of emotionally stunted emoticon, because and his courage actually to argue against the facts. So it's really amazing how little facts there are for evolution, and all the facts are on the side of creation, and there's only speculation, conjecture, imagination, assumption, assertions on the side of the evolutionists. When I say there's so little evidence, there's really no evidence, but they think it's evidence, and turns out that there's really no evidence for evolution, as was stated by Matt and Praise and Standing for Truth. There's so much evidence just contrary to any form of anything that goes against entropy, anything that goes against logic, rationality, reason. All the evidence is that there's no such thing as evolution. And yet they have to have it. They have to have evolution, because if they don't have anything in this. Exactly what they don't have is nothing. I mean, exactly what they do have is nothing, depending on what language you're speaking. So I just wanted to share that, and hopefully, we can help some of these people, be free from their irrational way of thinking, because they're getting nowhere, and all they're doing, they're kicking out creationists. They're kicking creationists out of the institutions, even today, and it's illegal. It's of course ungodly, and it's against the law, of course, and they take advantage of it just because we're Christians, but it's still against the law, and it's still proven that we're being illegally kicked out of the institutions. And then you turn around and say, well, why haven't you published the paper? And I've personally tried publishing a paper, but they won't listen to it. They won't listen to you. They won't help you get it straight, get it right, get it in order so that you can publish it. So it's, they won't even try to help you out to get it to where you can publish it. you know. So, they could care less where you're coming from and what you think, even if it is true. So it's true that matter is forced to be what it is, and matter can only ever do what it's made to do or directed to do. Speaking of direction, because every living thing is directed. So how do you get from no direction to being directed? It's just totally contrary to all logic. You can't have mistakes resulting in instruction. As you're appealing to infinite possibilities and limited time and space, limited time and distance. You're appealing to infinite possibilities. So, in other words, you believe that evolution cancels out every mistake. In other words, you believe that evolution is feeling in the dark for something that works. It's feeling. In other words, by the mistakes, you believe that it'll stumble across something viable, something that works, something with potential. And that's an appeal to infinite possibilities. In other words, you have to negate all of the things that don't work, all of the mistakes that don't work. You have to somehow exclude from the genome, even though it's all a part of the genome, because mistakes remain in the genome. But you believe that selection will select out all the mistakes, so that the only thing remains is viable instruction. That's what you believe, and you believe that billions of bits of instruction, programming, get there that way by excluding and canceling out all of the mistakes that are not viable. So you're assuming that what's going to be selected for is something that has no mistakes. And it's not the case, because everything that's selected for does have mistakes and continues to have more and more mistakes. And this accumulation of mistakes is what they were talking about, that make it no longer viable. Where did you see a working part make itself? Where did you see a working part assemble itself, or a bunch of working parts assemble themselves and make themselves work? So many things, like even and especially photosynthesis. The first thing on the menu for life, supposedly, before there was Cambrian and Precambrian, the first thing on the menu for life to make is photosynthesis. Is something that we can't even make or replicate ourselves. We can barely understand what's taking place. And it's all, pretty deep science just to even understand what's taking place. So, and I plan to do a video on that later. So, something as complicated and essential as photosynthesis is what's believed to have occurred, even though there's really, supposedly, there's no concept of what a billion years is. let alone 500 million years or 200 million years. There's no concept of what that is. Or even 100 million years. Or 50 million years. Because in that amount of time, all the sediments that are from Noah's flood would have washed into the ocean by that time. Because they're all half washed away as it is already. Because the floods initially were about 2 miles deep. If you look at the strata, the geologic column, supposedly, which is missing a whole bunch, it's in different places, it's different things in different places, of course, because it's a global flood. And so not all the parts of the geologic column are represented in a single place, because half of them are washed away to begin with. But then even if they are all there, they're still missing like hundreds of millions of years between consecutive water deposited sediment layers. So that alone disproves evolution. And there's so many things that you can repeat. You can go on and on and on, talk about all the different, proofs of, like they were doing in the other video, saying all different things contrary to evolution in favor of creation in a short timeline. And yet you have creationists being kicked out of institutions for telling the truth. Of course, as they were saying, they hate the truth. They consider the truth their enemy. Then what are you doing science for? Then get out of the science field, because you're not doing science. Because science is what you can know. Science is what you can prove. Science is what you can verify as to what's taking place or what took place. That's science, not speculation. It's absurd speculation of magical programming in billions of years. It's never been observed to happen, and never did happen, and never will happen. So tell the truth. You're lying to children. You're lying to kids. You're, in effect, telling kids that they don't have a maker, that their maker is mindless matter. It's a religion. It's a baseless belief with no evidence supporting it, when all the evidence is of creation. The evidence is of creation. All of it. All the evidence of creation. Entropy, everything. All of the evidence is of creation. No evidence supports evolution. Evolution is just a baseless belief in mindless matter. It's idolatry. It's idolatry to the core. It's exactly what the Bible has been speaking against throughout thousands of years, is not to imagine things that aren't real. That's what the Bible's been teaching for thousands of years. The goat herders that you deride said that there's a creator, there's an infinite, all-knowing, all-powerful, eternal creator. And that's what the evidence shows. That's what the scientific evidence shows, that there's an infinite potential, because you can't have energy coming from nowhere or from itself. energy has to come from an infinite potential. Can't come from less energy or an equal amount of energy. It has to come from a greater and greater and greater energy potential. It's like a battery, powers your phone because of its greater energy potential. Okay, where did that energy come from? It came from a greater energy potential. It didn't come from an equal amount of energy, because an equal amount of energy is not going to do anything. It's you have to have an uneven amount of energy. In other words, you have to have a greater and greater energy all the time, if you have any energy at all. Since energy is going from order to disorder, it's depleting all the time. It's coming from a greater source and dispersing. You have an uneven situation where the energy goes from one place to another. So where did that energy come from? It came from a greater energy, which came from a greater energy, which came from a greater energy, and a greater and greater energy, which arrives at infinite energy potential. So energy itself, matter itself, aside from the programming of matter, proves you have a maker, proves an infinite, all-powerful God. And he's all-knowing because he knows how to make a living organism. He knows what works, he knows what doesn't work. So if you're not teaching science, you need to stop deceiving kids, You're not teaching science, then stop deceiving the kids. Stop lying to kids. And the general public, for that matter. Because the general public needs to wake up to the facts too. It's just that you take advantage of weak-minded people, hoping against all hope that there is no God. And so you publish lies and they eat it up. They're always eating up the lies because that's what they want to see. They don't want to see the truth. But you're hindering people with your baseless belief. You're hindering people from knowing the truth. So you have to stop doing people a disservice. And recognize that the goat herders understood more than you. That all you're learning and studying and experimentation and research has failed to prove that matter made itself and ordered itself and made your mom and dad. You fail to prove it. Fail to prove it because that's not what happened. The truth is that you have an all-powerful, all-knowing creator who is perfect, not like you, not imperfect like you. He's perfect, and he wants to redeem you from your imperfection. He wants to remake you from the inside out, by the power of the truth, his true word, because he can only tell you what's true. He can't lie. God cannot lie. God cannot fail. He can only succeed, and he's commanding you to do the same. And that's not a bad thing. Your insistence on doing what's wrong is a bad thing, and worthy of punishment. So, need to do the right things to avoid punishment. At least tell the truth. The least you can do is admit and confess the truth. Tell the truth that only your Maker can remake you. Nobody else can, because that's all there is an infinite, eternal God, and you are a mere fabrication and powerless to do anything against God. And he's just waiting to see if you'll change your mind.